I would like to acknowledge the Bundjalung and Gumbaynggirr people who are the traditional custodians of this land. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders past and present of the Bundjalung and Gumbaynggirr Nation, and I extend that respect to other Indigenous people who are present. I grew up and live today in a small town called Grafton, located in the Northern Rivers region of New South Wales. Being an active community member over the years, I always considered Grafton a place that recognised, valued and supported Aboriginal heritage and culture. Whether it be through my public schooling years participating in NAIDOC weeks, saying the acknowledgement of country when running school assemblies, valuing my Indigenous teammates or friends, or even serving coffee at my work to Indigenous Australians. Although, a sudden realisation of sadness occurred when I realised that I couldn't even name off the top of my head an Aboriginal facility or service placed in Grafton. It was then I had to explore my local environment to gain an insight and a deeper understanding as to what Indigenous services were placed around town. The question danced on my mind as to how I was so blinded by the lack of acknowledgement that Grafton provided to Indigenous Australians. I come to the conclusion I was so unobservant because of my privileged role in society. Along my journey, I was faced with Indigenous services trying to close the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians, or policies and procedures put in place by schools or local services to value Indigenous Australians. Although I become aware of the world we face today, a world full of non-acceptance and an unsupportive culture to embrace a diverse population. We live in a neoliberalism society that struggles to provide Indigenous Australians with a connection to their land. If you look at where all the Indigenous services and facilities are located in Grafton, they are not located in visible areas where majority of businesses are located in the main street of Grafton. Is this why I did not know where any of the Aboriginal facilities and services were located in Grafton? And if so, why are they not more visible to the Grafton population? The lack of Indigenous identity in Grafton today goes back to colonisation, where Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders experienced dispossession and injustices that created so much hardship and oppression, which is still experienced today. The most heart-wrenching event that caught my eye during my journey was the arcade to the local shopping centre. I was confronted with a timeline and history of Grafton, beginning at European settlement. Hundreds of people walk through this arcade every day. I could not believe the lack of recognition to Indigenous Australians as to those who were the first peoples on this land. There was also no Indigenous milestones portrayed on the timeline. From this experience, I have critically reflected on myself and become more aware. Even though during my life I have interacted with Indigenous culture and Aboriginals positively, I still have such a long journey ahead to becoming an active ally of social justice and help combat the injustices between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. I hope my journey involves more resources and activities that guides my learning and gives me a deeper understanding of the cultural support needed by Aboriginals. I strongly believe that Grafton does not value or acknowledge Indigenous Australians to the extent that they deserve. I have unearthed many sad emotions during my reflection, so I cannot imagine the pain and suffering Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders have experienced over the years. I hope for a future with positive change that values, accepts, recognises and promotes equality.